This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Not everyone is careful with your personal information, which might explain why there's a victim of identity theft every 5 seconds in the US. Fortunately, there's LifeLock. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats to your identity. If your identity is stolen, a US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year by visiting lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back into the Stone Zone. Joining me now is the dynamic Mel K. Mel K is one of the most compelling thinkers and speakers, specializing in connecting complex dots and analyzing compelling narratives. She is, of course, the host of the Mel K Show. Despite efforts to purge and censor her, she has persevered, and the Mel K Show is seen by millions of people every week. I like Mel K because she tells it like it is, and ran into her the other night in, where else, a bar. We had a cocktail, and it occurred to me that we really need some of Mel K's wisdom here in the Stone Zone. So, Mel, thanks for joining us.
Great seeing you. What a time. What a time to be alive, huh?
It really is. Mel, by the way, is also the author of a terrific book, Americans Anonymous, Restoring Power to the People, One Citizen at a Time. Strongly urge you to check that out. Mel spent 2 decades in Hollywood, working as a screenwriter and producer. She also has an investigative journalism background, and she has a keen eye for what's going on in the country. Mel, let's jump right into it. The auto pen. Turns out that Joe Biden probably was unaware of the fact that he was pardoning some of his cronies like Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi and Liz Cheney and Dr. Anthony Fauci and others. He was also pardoning, and this is kind of hard to understand, hardened criminals, murderers, drug dealers, people who had never expressed remorse, people who hadn't even applied for a pardon. What do you make of all of this?
Well, I make it the same thing. It's a continuation of what we've been dealing with for a very long time. Before the 2020 election, there were 51 intelligence operatives that lied to the country. There was a concerted effort to, in my opinion, it was a conspiracy to defraud the people of the United States of America. So once they put in Joe Biden as a front man and continued to run the country through the Obama network after, it didn't really matter. And if you look back on their history, it wouldn't surprise me what Tim Burchett is saying, which is that some of these people paid off, whoever the auto pen runners were, to get pardons for people for one reason or another. And that wouldn't surprise me because a lot of what's happening, especially that's coming out now over the last 4 years of criminality, it seems to me that maybe the Biden crime family is the least of the criminals behind the scenes in the Biden world.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Congressman Tim Burchett, a crusading congressman from Tennessee, has speculated that somebody was getting paid, which there is really no other logical explanation for some of these. But what if the auto pen was used to sign the Supreme Court appointment of Judge Ketanji Brown? Is that, I'm not sure how you would address that legally.
I'm not sure either, but I do know that they violated the 1964 Civil Rights Act that was already in place when, Biden announced that he could only pick a black woman for the Supreme Court justice. So it starts there, and then you work backwards. Frankly, I think everything, if we can prove that he was not running the White House, which I don't think he was. I see Susan Rice, Anita Dunn, the Donilon brothers. A lot of people were back there that the American people don't even know who they are. And I think first and foremost, we have to find out at what point, and was it before the election of 2020, that he was already incapacitated. And I don't know how we will figure that out, but I do believe that that will come to light at some point with the new structuring that's going on in the very corrupt intelligence community.
Yeah, the most culpable person here, of course, is Dr. Jill Biden. Not since Woodrow Wilson's wife concealed the fact that President Wilson was completely physically and mentally debilitated by a stroke for the last 3 years of his presidency, and that she, along with the White House Chief of Staff, Colonel House, were really running the country. But this was in the pre-mass media days, the pre-television, the pre-internet days, so you could hide it a lot better. She knew that Joe wasn't up to the job, but she enjoyed the pomp and circumstance, not to mention the money-making opportunities for the Biden crime family. We know definitively that Hunter and Jim Biden, other members of the Biden family, got tens of millions of dollars from entities in China, in Russia, in Ukraine, in Romania, and elsewhere. It appears to me, by the way, that they will pay no price whatsoever for that.
Yeah, it appears that way to me, too, though I'm not entirely sure. I think a lot of crimes that we're going to be dealing with, whether it's past the statute of limitations, which honestly, on some RICO cases, sedition and treason, I don't think there are any. But we do have to look all the way back to the original Obama, even picking Joe Biden, and what happened during those years. A lot of these deals that were put out once we got all the documentation from the Hunter Biden laptops, was frankly that this was going on for decades with the Biden family, and certainly during the years involved where he was vice president. And then on top of that, we know that everything that transpired leading up to 2020 involved not just big money donors, but also people all over the place that were manipulating this country via propaganda and, the news media to just kind of dismiss all of the criminality. And frankly, the whole Burisma situation, the whole war going back to, the end of the USSR, but certainly 2014, this all goes on Biden's watch. This all goes on Nuland, the people that overthrew the 2014 government of Ukraine and then took over. That included the Biden family. So all of this also included Barack Obama. And for me, if this country does not get to the bottom of Barack Obama and his many criminal acts in office and after office, then we are not going to clean up as much as we possibly can, which is what we have to do.
Folks, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to the incredible Mel K. She's the host of the Mel K Show. You can find her on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Mel K Show. Strongly urge you to follow her lively postings there, and you can see her show on Rumble. What I love about you, Mel, is you always tell it exactly the way it is. President Trump said today he's considering taking the $3 billion that we're currently giving to Harvard, which, by the way, has a multi-billion-dollar endowment that they never touch, and giving it instead to trade schools. Think that's a good move?
I think it's a great move because we have to understand things that are coming out about some of the companies that we consider American that are not American. They are global public-private partnerships. But Apple has been going over to China all these years. What people don't look at is that China has been training them to do the technology, to create the phones, to do all of this. So we don't have anyone learning trades either in AI or in creating some of the electronics and the chips. We don't have people that can do, plumbing at this point. I mean, I think that's the best thing that we could possibly do. And also, Harvard has been a problem for decades. And at this point, if we can't look at the Kennedy School and some of the things that have come out of it, particularly Kissinger, and then you team that up with the World Economic Forum and the EU, we have been greatly deceived about the Poison Ivy League for a very long time, particularly how they treated the Weather Underground and the people that funded that and then put them all into those schools after we already dealt with the Frankfurt School at Columbia. So none of this is new. We have just been lied to for decades that these are the superior intellects of our country when clearly they're just the controlled globalist feeding house in our nation, into our government, that have been betraying this nation.
It's funny you mentioned plumbers. When I was growing up, my parents were a blue-collar, working-class background in the suburbs of New York City and Connecticut. They wanted me to become a plumber. Of course, then I went to work for Richard Nixon, so in a way, I guess I did.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. But we need that all over the country. If we're going to rebuild Main Street, we need American people to get out there and take it personally, that they themselves, individually, how can they get involved in rebuilding America? And a lot of that's going to be in rebuilding Main Street all over this country that has been abandoned. And frankly, all of the abandoned farmland, all of the abandoned mills, all of that. We can restore this country, but the people have to get involved. And that's really where we're at right now.
Subjective question for you, Mel. What, in your opinion, is the single greatest danger facing this country?
The single greatest danger facing this country right now, in my opinion, is the unholy alliance between the globalist billionaire oligarchy that has captured our country from the highest levels, that aligns with the World Economic Forum and the UN and the Bilderberg, aligned with the EU, and this idea that they still want a unified Europe. And it's just very disturbing that they're pushing towards World War III, no matter how many people die, no matter how much chaos, because I believe that they still cannot let go of this idea of this future where Europe is still the most powerful, including swallowing up Russia. So to me, what I'm looking at, and I've been looking at lately with Chuck Grassley asking for the rat line records from Credit Suisse to Argentina to America, I think we're looking at the post-World War II period, Bretton Woods period, all of that period, the German Marshall Fund, and looking at that and thinking, was that when America was sold out? And I really think that the American people have to really look at that period of time post-World War II and realize we're dealing with the same people that allowed Nazis into our military, that did Operation Paperclip. They were all aligned with the banking cartel, and they're trying to save this greater Europe, UK, Swiss international banking system that they put together by any means necessary. Of course, I think they're failing, but the EU is the worst of their projects, and the euro, of course, came out of that. So I just think we have a lot of banking criminality that's worldwide that is being exposed, and once people can clearly see that, I think we will be far on our way to realizing who our allies are and who they are not, because I do not believe the EU to be an ally of the United States at this point.
I completely agree with you. I would only add this. I think our greatest danger is all those entities that you mentioned and their alliance with mainstream media and their desperate need to censor us. It doesn't matter what you think of Elon Musk. It's interesting to me that the left loved him until he bought Twitter, renamed it X, and let people like you and I back on. And then suddenly he found himself the target of 9 separate federal investigations, which had to do with his new commitment to free speech. Censorship that covers the criminality of the financial acts as well as the acts of war and the crimes against humanity by the globalists, I think is the greatest single danger we face, and we should not kid ourselves. Facebook is still heavily censored. Instagram is still heavily censored. YouTube is still heavily censored. You can go to Facebook right now. You'll find a bunch of Roger Stones, but none of them are me. Not a single one. I was in a restaurant recently. A guy came up to me and said, "Hey, Stone, where's that crypto I bought from you?" I said, "Pardon me?"
Oh, geez,
he said, "The crypto I bought from you on Facebook." Well, folks, A, I don't sell crypto, and B, I'm not on Facebook. But right. I've had other people say, you offered me a job on Facebook, you asked for my financial info. Folks, I'm not on Facebook. If you see a Roger Stone there, it's not me. I would not follow them nor listen to their entreaties. Look, the suspected murderer, Elias Rodriguez, reportedly posted death to America prior to the murder of 2 people in New York City. He also praised Luigi Mangione, who gunned down a insurance company executive. Has the left become completely unhinged?
Yeah, sadly enough, the hardest part to really unravel all of this, again, a lot of this goes back, sadly, to Harvard, to Gene Sharp, to Norm Eisen, to his mentor, Cass Sonstein, who doesn't believe in the First Amendment. Of course, his wife has been running the money train to the censors and to the fake news and to the Poynter Institute and the Reid Hoffman's ridiculous Columbia University journalism programs. These are all propagandists on the level that only Goebbels and Hitler and Himmler are looking at and thinking from hell, oh my God, they're so good at this. But a lot of this goes back to straight up color revolution, infiltrating front groups, things that they've been doing since the 40s and 50s in America. And, they all went after McCarthy and the Red House documents, and all that is fake. But you can look it up on the CIA website. A lot of this is infiltration instead of invasion, as JFK warned us, and we have allowed it to go. And the bottom line is, when this all comes to fruition, you find that it's the same 10 global globalist billionaires that are behind the Great Reset, that are behind the Fourth Industrial Revolution, that are funding every one of these on-the-ground movements that are destroying our country, promoting violence, and getting to our kids. And if we don't just cut it off like Trump's trying to do, but we also have to educate the public that they are being deceived, because first of all, Google and Wikipedia are a danger to this country, especially to our children. They are picking and choosing respected sources. Of course, that's Politico, New York Times, USA Today, Washington Post, all that. Then you got YouTube, also the same thing. That's Google. And then on the other side, you have Wikipedia, a fraudulent CIA operation that is basically our children are using as an encyclopedia like we used when we were kids in the library and had to research things. So our children are being deceived about the past, about the future, and about right now by those entities. And our country has to stand up and stop it, or our children will never, ever understand, and they will be rendered helpless and unable to fight back if we don't win this war right now.
We're listening to the irrepressible Mel K right here in the Stone Zone, and we'll be right back.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone. This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
We're back in the Stone Zone. We're visiting with the irrepressible Mel K. She is the host of the Mel K Show on Rumble. You can find her at Mel K Show on X. Mel, at the beginning of the show, because it's Memorial Day, I promised people the recipe for the perfect hamburger, and here it is. You need 2 pounds of ground beef. You need a quarter cup of minced yellow onion. You need 2 tablespoons of fresh thyme, 1 tablespoon of ground black pepper, 1 tablespoon of fresh rosemary, 1/4 teaspoon of coriander, 1/4 spoon of ground fennel, a dash of cayenne pepper, and 1 egg lightly beaten. You mix all of that in a bowl with a sprinkle of kosher salt. You form that into patties, and then you can either put it in a cast iron skillet over medium-high heat, or, of course, you can grill it outside. By the way, that is the secret recipe for the 21 burger from the old 21 Club on 52nd Street. Mel, on this Memorial Day, I want you to give us your final thoughts about where America is and where we are headed.
Well, I think we are in a tremendous opportunity. Right now, it's kind of like a snow globe being shaken up, and not everything's falling into place. But I do have a lot of faith in a couple of people that have the ability to turn this country around, and that is we have a real problem post-Patriot Act with a fourth branch of government known as the intelligence community that has been weaponized against us. And I believe DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, and, of course, the emissary to the intelligence community, Devin Nunes and others, need to weed out, sort out, and start using the DNI as was intended, as the clearing ground for all of the intelligence. The DNI can go in and get anything they want. That's part of the Patriot Act deal for creating it, and that's got to be the first step. We also have to use the weapons they used against us, against them. Unfortunately, and it's not them, the Democrats, because the left and right Republican Democrat right now is a joke. What it is are people that are globalist, oligarch types that own all these NGOs that have been functioning as a shadow government. We both know they didn't leave D.C. when Trump came in. They went to East-West Advisors and a bunch of different consulting firms and continued down the path as if they were running the government as a shadow government. And frankly, Tulsi Gabbard has the ability to pull all those pieces together and actually put together the first real assessment of what has gone on in the intelligence community over the last several years. And I believe she's doing that right now. At that that point, we bring a lot to the surface, and we can cut a lot of fat. In the meantime, the American people have to understand the sewer is in D.C., the swamp is in your backyard. And every single American that loves this country, loves their children, wants to recreate greatness in this nation has to realize it's in their hands and their hands locally. We have these NGOs, these sustainable development, the surveillance state in every backyard, everywhere in this country. It was a full infiltration that has not been stopped since 1963, and it's time for us to get involved locally and pull out the NGOs, pull out the cronies that are giving away, our elections and all of that. But it's got to be all hands on deck. We right now are in 1776, because if you look at the Declaration of Independence right now, we are fighting the exact same fight, but this time against a global public-private partnership that does not hide and we can defeat, but only if we know the enemy and take it into our own hands.
Ladies and gentlemen, the great Mel K, a firecracker, a patriot, a thinker, a woman of enormous courage. You can see her on the Mel K Show. It's available on Rumble. Also, you can find her at Mel K Show on XMel. Thanks for joining us today in the Stone Zone. And, I owe you a burger. Let's do it.
Yes, you do. Thank you.
That's it for us today. Thank you so much for joining us here in the Stone Zone. Until tomorrow, God bless you. And yes, Godspeed.